The stars twinkled above, indifferent to the growing tensions on Earth. Humanity had advanced into space, but instead of uniting with the galaxy's inhabitants, they had found themselves in yet another conflict. The United Earth Federation, led by military zealots, was pushing hard for war. A powerful alien race known as the Arcani stood in their way. Tall, graceful beings known for their unmatched combat skills and strict warrior code. Yet, unlike humans, these alien warriors did not crave war. Captain Raylan Pierce stood in the Earth Federation's war room, his sharp eyes surveying the faces around him. Generals and advisors discussed strategies, talking about fleet positions and battle plans as if lives were merely numbers on a chart. Pierce's gut twisted. He had seen war up close, and it was never as clean as these strategists made it sound. "Captain Pierce," General Tovak barked, his voice cutting through the noise. "You're leading the first strike against the Arcani. We have intelligence that they're massing near Proxima Centauri. We need to show them we won't back down." Pierce hesitated, his mind racing. The Arcani had not fired a single shot despite Earth's aggressive posturing. What if they didn't want this war? What if humanity was making a terrible mistake? "Sir, what if we attempt communication again? We don't fully understand their culture. Maybe there's another way." Pierce's voice was steady, but inside, he felt the weight of his words. General Tovak's eyes narrowed. "They've had their chance to talk, Captain. If they wanted peace, they wouldn't be massing their ships. We strike first." Pierce swallowed his protests and nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. As the meeting adjourned, he made his way to the hangar, where his crew was preparing for battle. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more complex than they understood. As they boarded the ship, one of his lieutenants, Sarah Coates, approached him. "Captain, you seem troubled." "I am," Pierce admitted. "We're rushing into this without understanding our enemy. They haven't attacked us yet, but we're treating them like a threat." Sarah looked thoughtful. "I've read reports about the Arcani. They have a strong warrior tradition, but they value honor above all else. Maybe they see our actions as dishonorable." Pierce nodded, grateful for her insight. "Exactly. That's what worries me. We're about to provoke a war with a race that might not even want one." Hours later, they approached the Arcani fleet. The alien ships were sleek and elegant, hovering like silent predators in the void of space. The humans readied their weapons, and tension filled the air. "Captain," Sarah's voice came through the comm. "I'm picking up a transmission. It's from the Arcani." Pierce's heart skipped a beat. "Put it through." A calm, measured voice echoed through the speakers. "Humans, we do not seek war. We stand ready to defend ourselves, but we ask that you reconsider your actions. Violence is not the path we choose." Pierce clenched his fists, knowing this could be the moment that changed everything. "This is Captain Raylan Pierce of the United Earth Federation. We have no desire for unnecessary bloodshed. Why have you gathered your fleet?" After a pause, the Arcani leader responded, "We are protecting our borders. You have encroached upon our territory and threatened our people. We cannot stand idle while you prepare for war." Pierce exchanged a glance with Sarah, whose expression mirrored his own. The Arcani weren't aggressors. They were defenders. This wasn't a battle for dominance. It was about survival. "I'm requesting a meeting," Pierce said firmly. "No weapons, just words. Let's resolve this before more lives are lost." Another pause followed, but this time, the alien leader's voice softened. "Very well, Captain Pierce. We will meet." As they prepared for the rendezvous, Pierce's mind raced. This could be the turning point, a chance to stop the madness before it began. But deep down, he knew the biggest challenge was yet to come, convincing humanity's leaders that peace was the only true victory. The tension in the air was thick as Captain Raylan Pierce stepped onto the sleek surface of the Arcani flagship. His boots made soft echoes in the polished metal halls, a stark contrast to the silence of the Arcani warriors who escorted him. These warriors, Tall, imposing figures with intricate armor carried themselves with an air of calm and control that Pierce found unsettling. He had seen countless soldiers prepare for war, but none carried the stillness that the Arcanine did. Pierce's crew, including Sarah Coates, followed close behind, their faces unreadable as they moved deeper into alien territory. It felt surreal, being inside the belly of the very ship they had been ordered to attack. The humans wore sidearms, but Pierce had ordered that they keep them holstered. This wasn't a battle. It was a negotiation, a last-ditch effort to avoid bloodshed. They entered a large chamber, the walls adorned with symbols Pierce couldn't decipher. At the center stood a figure that instantly drew his attention. Commander Lyria of the Arcanine. She was unlike any warrior Pierce had ever seen. Her presence was commanding, but there was a softness in her eyes, a look that spoke of wisdom beyond her years. "Captain Raylan Pierce," she said, her voice calm yet strong. "Welcome to my ship." Pierce nodded, keeping his posture respectful. "Commander Lyria, I'm here to prevent a war." Lyria studied him for a moment, her violet eyes searching his face. "I sense that your intentions are true, but your leaders speak differently. They threaten us, push us to the brink. We are not a people who seek conflict, but we will not be driven from our home." Pierce took a breath, choosing his words carefully. "I won't deny that the Earth Federation is preparing for war. But many of us, myself included, believe it's a mistake. We don't understand your people well enough to be making these decisions. That's why I'm here, to bridge that gap." Lyria's eyes flickered with something, perhaps surprise or even respect. "You are different from the others I've encountered. Most humans have been quick to dismiss us as threats." Sarah stepped forward, her voice firm but respectful. "Commander, our cultures are very different, but we've read about your warrior traditions. Honor and peace are important to you. We believe there's a way forward that doesn't end in destruction." Lyria glanced at the other Arcanine warriors who stood silently around her. "Your words echo our own hopes, but I fear your leaders will not listen to reason." Pierce's mind raced. He knew she was right. Convincing the Earth Federation to stand down would be nearly impossible. The generals craved victory, and they saw the Arcanine as a threat to their dominance. But if Pierce could show them that war wasn't inevitable, that peace could be achieved, maybe there was a chance. "There's always a way," Pierce said, stepping closer. "I'm asking for time. Let me go back to my people and present your side. Show them that we don't need to fight." Lyria's gaze hardened. "Time is something we do not have in abundance, Captain. Your fleets are at our borders, and my warriors grow restless." Pierce understood the weight of her words. The window for peace was closing fast, and if he didn't act quickly, the war he was trying to stop would erupt in full force. He glanced at Sarah, who nodded in support. "I'll convince them," Pierce promised. "I'll make them see reason." Lyria studied him for what felt like an eternity before she finally spoke. "Very well. You have my word that we will hold our position and not fire unless attacked. But if you fail to sway your leaders, we will defend ourselves with everything we have." Pierce nodded, relief washing over him. "Thank you, Commander. I won't let this chance slip away." The meeting concluded, and as Pierce and his crew returned to their ship, the weight of the task ahead bore down on him. The Arcanine had given him an opportunity to stop the madness, but the real challenge lay in convincing humanity's war-hungry leadership to back down. As they prepared for the jump back to Earth, Sarah spoke up, her voice low. "Do you think they'll listen?" Pierce sighed, staring out into the void. "I don't know, but I have to try." The ship's engines hummed to life, and they set course for Earth. Time was running out, and with each passing second, the threat of war loomed larger. But Pierce wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The journey back to Earth was tense, the silence aboard the ship heavy with uncertainty. Captain Raylan Pierce sat in his command chair, his mind racing with the gravity of what lay ahead. He had seen firsthand the determination of the Arcanine warriors, and more than that, he had seen Lyria's hope for peace. But convincing Earth's leadership to abandon their plans for war seemed like an impossible task. Sarah Coates approached, her expression a mix of determination and doubt. "Are you ready for this? They're not exactly going to welcome your proposal with open arms." Pierce glanced at her, the weight of responsibility clear in his eyes. "They'll fight me every step of the way. But I can't let this war happen without at least trying to stop it." The ship descended toward Earth's sprawling capital, a metropolis of glass towers and endless traffic. As they landed in the military zone, Pierce's gut tightened. He knew the Earth Federation's top brass were eager for a war they believed they could win easily, using superior human technology and numbers to crush the Arcanae. Pierce and his crew were escorted through the towering halls of the Federation's headquarters, their footsteps echoing off the marble floors. The meeting room was vast, cold, and filled with a sense of impending doom. Around the massive conference table sat Earth's most powerful military leaders, including General Jackson Trent, a man whose reputation for ruthless efficiency was well known. As Pierce entered, Trent didn't even look up from the holographic display hovering above the table. "Captain Pierce, I trust your mission was successful. Did you gather enough intel on the Arcanae's defenses?" Pierce took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "General, we need to talk. This war doesn't have to happen." That got Trent's attention. His piercing eyes snapped toward Pierce, narrowing. "Excuse me, Captain." Pierce stood his ground. "I've met with the Arcanae leadership. They don't want war. They're prepared to defend themselves. But if we stand down, they will too. There's room for negotiation." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Trent rose slowly from his seat, his broad frame towering over the table. "Negotiation with the Arcanae. Captain, they've been expanding their territory unchecked for years. They're a threat to our interests, and now they've crossed a line." "They haven't attacked us," Pierce argued, his voice steady. "They only want to defend their home. We're the ones pushing them to the brink." Trent's eyes darkened, his patience wearing thin. "Captain, your job was to assess their capabilities, not to advocate for peace. The Arcanae are warriors, bred for battle. They don't understand anything but strength." Pierce shook his head, frustration bubbling to the surface. "That's not true. They value honor. They respect peace, if we offer it. I'm telling you, General, we can stop this before it's too late." Trent's fist slammed against the table, causing several officers to jump. "Enough. We didn't rise to the top of the galaxy by cowering before alien threats. We have the firepower to wipe them out, and that's exactly what we're going to do. The Council has already approved the attack plan. You're either with us, or you're not." Pierce's stomach sank. He had feared this. The unwillingness to listen, the eagerness for a conflict that didn't need to happen. He could feel Sarah's tension beside him, and he knew she was ready to back him no matter the cost. "I didn't come back here to watch us make the biggest mistake in human history," Pierce said, his voice low but resolute. "We have a chance to avoid war, to work with the Arcanae instead of against them. If we strike now, we'll only create more enemies." Trent's gaze hardened into ice. "You sound like a coward, Pierce. Maybe you're not cut out for this fight after all." Pierce's hands clenched at his sides, but he forced himself to remain calm. "If believing in peace makes me a coward, then so be it. But I won't stand by and let innocent lives be destroyed." The room went silent once more as the weight of Pierce's defiance hung in the air. Finally, Trent spoke, his voice cold and final. "You're relieved of command, Captain. I'll find someone who's willing to carry out the mission." Pierce didn't flinch. He had expected this. "You can relieve me of command, General, but you can't stop me from fighting for what's right." Trent's lip curled in disdain. "Get him out of here." Two guards moved toward Pierce, but before they could take him, Sarah stepped forward. "We're not done yet, General." Trent looked at her, surprised by the challenge. "Lieutenant Coates, don't make this harder than it has to be." Sarah stood her ground, her voice steady. "This isn't about being hard. It's about doing what's right. If you go through with this war, you'll regret it. Pierce gave her a small, grateful nod as the guards finally escorted them out of the room. As they walked through the halls, Pierce could feel the weight of failure pressing down on him. He had tried to stop the war, but Earth's leaders were too blind to see beyond their own ambitions. But he wasn't giving up. Not yet. As they left the headquarters, Pierce turned to Sarah. We need to reach out to others, people who listen, who want peace as much as we do. Sarah nodded. I know a few contacts in the diplomatic corps. We'll find a way. Pierce looked up at the sky, the distant stars flickering through the clouds. Time was running out, but there was still a sliver of hope. We have to, Pierce said quietly, because if we don't, this galaxy will burn. Captain Pierce and Sarah Coates left the Federation headquarters with a mix of anger and determination in their hearts. Earth's leaders were resolute in their plans for war, but Pierce knew there had to be others who would listen, those who valued peace over conquest. As the shuttle lifted off from the sprawling capital, the weight of their mission was clear. To stop a galactic war, they would need to rally support from the most unlikely of places. The shuttle's engines hummed as Sarah guided it toward a secluded location, far from the watchful eyes of Earth's military complex. We can't do this alone, she said, breaking the silence. Pierce nodded, his mind already racing through the possibilities. We'll need allies, people who still believe in diplomacy. I've already reached out to a few contacts, Sarah continued, glancing at Pierce. There are still diplomats in the Federation who are against the war, but they're afraid to speak up. We have to convince them to join us. The shuttle descended into a hidden landing zone, a forested area far from the bustling cities of Earth. As they disembarked, a figure emerged from the shadows. Dressed in civilian clothes, her sharp eyes and posture still hinted at a military past. Captain Pierce, she greeted, her voice low but firm. I'm Ambassador Elara Reyes. Sarah told me what happened. Pierce extended his hand. Ambassador, thank you for meeting us. We don't have much time. Reyes shook his hand, her expression serious. I agree. The Council is pushing ahead with the war, and any dissent is being silenced. But there are those within the diplomatic courts who still believe in finding a peaceful solution. We just need to be careful. Pierce glanced around, wary of spies or surveillance. How many are with us? A handful, but they're influential, Reyes replied, leading them toward a small bunker hidden beneath the trees. We've been gathering intelligence, trying to understand the true motivations behind the war. It's not just about territory, Pierce. There's more to it. The group entered the bunker, its walls lined with screens displaying maps and communications intercepts. Several individuals were already there, poring over documents and tactical data. Reyes gestured toward the screens. We've intercepted communications between the Federation's top brass. They're not just preparing for war with the Arcanae. They're planning a full-scale galactic expansion. This isn't about defense, it's about domination. Pierce's stomach twisted. He had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made it all the more real. So the war with the Arcanae is just the beginning. Reyes nodded grimly. Exactly. They want to use the Arcanae as a stepping stone, a way to rally human support for more aggressive expansion. If they succeed, countless other species will be caught in the crossfire. Pierce ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the enormity of the situation. Then we have to act fast. If we can expose this, maybe we can turn public opinion against the war. Sarah, who had been studying the data, looked up. What about the Arcanae? We can't fight this battle alone. If they know what's coming, maybe they'll be willing to work with us. Reyes hesitated. The Arcanae are warriors, Captain. They're proud, and they don't trust easily. But if you can convince their leadership that Earth's military won't stop at just one war, they might be willing to consider an alliance. Pierce stood straighter, a glimmer of hope sparking in his chest. We need to speak with Lyria again. She's our best chance at reaching the Arcanae leadership. Reyes frowned. It won't be easy. The Federation is monitoring all communication channels. If they find out you're trying to make contact with the Arcanae, they'll arrest you for treason. I'll take that risk, Pierce said without hesitation. This is bigger than any of us. If we don't stop this war, the entire galaxy will suffer. Ray studied him for a moment, then nodded. I'll arrange a secure line. But be careful, Captain. You're walking a dangerous path. Later that evening, in the dimly lit bunker, Pierce sat in front of a communication console, waiting for the connection to go through. The air was thick with tension as Sarah stood nearby, watching for any signs of interference. Finally, the screen flickered to life, and the familiar face of Lyria appeared. Her expression was calm, but there was a hint of curiosity in her bright eyes. Captain Pierce, Lyria greeted, her voice steady. I didn't expect to hear from you so soon. Lyria, I don't have much time, Pierce said, leaning forward. Things have escalated on Earth. The Federation isn't just planning a war with the Arcanae. They're planning to expand their control across the galaxy. This is about more than just your people. Lyria's brow furrowed. You're saying they intend to conquer other species as well? Pierce nodded. Yes. If we don't stop them now, your world won't be the only one under threat. We need your help, Lyria. I know the Arcanae value honor and strength, but this war won't bring either. It will only bring destruction. Lyria was silent for a moment, her eyes narrowing as she considered his words. Finally, she spoke, her tone serious. The Arcanae do not trust easily, Captain. But if what you say is true, then we cannot stand idly by while the galaxy is thrown into chaos. I will speak with the Council of Elders. But know this, if we agree to an alliance, we expect humanity to honor its word. Pierce's heart lifted. You have my word, Lyria. We want peace, not conquest. Lyria gave a slight nod. I will contact you once I have spoken with the Council. But be prepared, Captain. The Arcanae do not take such matters lightly. The screen went dark, and Pierce leaned back in his chair, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Sarah approached, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and concern. Do you think they'll agree? Pierce sighed. I don't know. But at least we've planted the seed. Now we just have to hope it grows. Reyes entered the room, a grim expression on her face. You made contact. Pierce nodded. Lyria's going to speak with her leadership. If we can get the Arcanae on our side, it might be enough to turn the tide. Reyes crossed her arms. Let's hope so, because if the Federation finds out what we're doing, we'll all be branded traitors. Pierce glanced at the stars through the small window of the bunker, his mind filled with the weight of the mission ahead. We'll stop this war, he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. We have to. The days that followed were tense. Every moment felt like a countdown to the inevitable conflict between Earth and the Arcanae. Captain Pierce, Sarah, and Ambassador Reyes worked tirelessly, coordinating covert communications, gathering intelligence, and preparing for what felt like an uphill battle to stop the war. The atmosphere in the hidden bunker grew more charged with each passing day. The Federation was moving fast, finalizing their plans for the first strike against the Arcanae. With every report that came in, it became clearer that the Federation's thirst for conquest wasn't going to be easily quenched. Pierce paced the length of the bunker, feeling the weight of time slipping away. What's taking so long? He muttered, more to himself than to anyone in the room. Sarah glanced up from her console, her fingers pausing over the keys. We've done everything we can. It's in Lyria's hands now. Reyes, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed, watched Pierce closely. The Arcanae are warriors, Captain. They don't rush into decisions lightly, especially when it comes to matters of trust. Just as Pierce was about to respond, a soft chime echoed through the bunker. The communication console lit up, signaling an incoming message. Sarah moved quickly, opening the channel. The screen flickered, and Lyria's face appeared once again. But this time, Her expression was more serious, more resolved. "Captain Pierce," Lyria greeted, her voice steady. "I have spoken with the Council of Elders. They have considered your words carefully." Pierce's heart pounded in his chest as he waited for her next words. "The Council has agreed," Lyria continued. "The Arcani will not engage in a war of conquest. If the Federation's true intentions are as you have described, we will not stand by while the galaxy burns." However, she added, her eyes narrowing, "the Arcani do not simply take sides. We will act only to protect our own and the peace of the galaxy. If you fail to stop your people, we will defend ourselves with everything we have." Pierce felt a surge of relief, but also understood the gravity of the situation. "I understand, Lyria. Thank you. We won't let it come to that." Lyria gave a curt nod. "The Arcani fleet will remain on standby. If you need our assistance, contact us directly. But know this, if Earth fires the first shot, we will respond in kind." The screen went dark once again, leaving the room in silence. Pierce turned to face Reyes and Sarah, both of whom wore expressions of cautious optimism. "We have their support," Pierce said, the words finally sinking in. "Now we just have to stop the Federation from starting the war." Reyes stepped forward, her brow furrowed in thought. "It won't be easy. The Federation's military is ready to strike. They've painted the Arcani as an immediate threat, and they won't back down without a fight." Pierce clenched his fists. "Then we have to give them a reason to back down." The Federation's military headquarters was buzzing with activity. Commanders barked orders, and soldiers prepared for the impending battle. Earth's leaders had convinced themselves and the public that the Arcani were a menace that needed to be crushed, and there was no turning back now. Captain Pierce, Sarah, and Ambassador Reyes made their way into the heart of the military compound under the guise of attending a final strategy briefing. Their plan was risky, bordering on reckless, but it was their only chance. "We need to get to the central command room," Sarah whispered as they moved through the bustling hallways. "That's where the strike orders are being sent." Reyes nodded, her eyes scanning their surroundings. "Once we're in, I'll delay the communication systems. That'll buy us time to broadcast the truth." Pierce knew the stakes. If they were caught, they'd be branded traitors. But he also knew that if they didn't act, millions, if not billions, of lives across the galaxy would be lost in a senseless war. They'd reached the command room, where Earth's top military officials were gathered, preparing to give the order to launch the first strike. Pierce's heart raced as they slipped into the room, unnoticed among the chaos. Reyes moved to the communications console while Sarah kept watch. As Reyes began her work, Pierce stepped forward, taking a deep breath. He knew what he had to do. "Stop!" Pierce's voice boomed across the command room. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned toward him. General Vasquez, the military's hard-nosed leader, glared at Pierce from the central console. "Captain Pierce, what is the meaning of this?" Pierce stood tall, meeting Vasquez's gaze. "You can't launch that strike, General. It will start a war that will devastate not just Earth, but the entire galaxy." Vasquez's eyes narrowed. "We've been over this, Captain. The Arcani are a threat, and we must act before they strike us first." "They aren't going to strike us," Pierce countered. "They don't want war. But if you fire that first shot, they will respond with overwhelming force, and Earth will be the one that suffers." Vasquez's expression darkened. "You're speaking treason, Pierce." Pierce didn't flinch. "No, I'm speaking the truth. The Federation's war isn't about defense. It's about conquest. I've seen the orders, General. This is about expanding our territory, about dominating other species. But that's not who we are. We're better than this." Murmurs spread through the room as some of the officers exchanged uncertain glances. Vasquez's face twisted with anger, but before he could respond, the central console beeped, signaling an incoming transmission. Reyes had done it. She'd delayed the strike orders. "Listen to me," Pierce said, his voice rising with urgency. "If we go through with this, millions will die. We have a chance to stop it right now. The Arcanae are willing to talk. They want peace, just like we do. We don't have to be the aggressors. Vasquez looked ready to explode, but before he could issue an order, a familiar voice filled the room. "This is Lyria of the Arcanae." The transmission crackled to life. "We stand ready to defend our people, but we do not seek war. If Earth chooses peace, we will meet you at the negotiating table." The room fell deathly silent. The weight of Lyria's words hung in the air, challenging the narrative the Federation had been pushing. Pierce took a step forward. "There it is. They're willing to talk. We can end this before it even begins." Vasquez glared at Pierce, his face a mask of fury. But the other officers were no longer standing with him. One by one, they lowered their weapons, their faces filled with uncertainty. After what felt like an eternity, Vasquez let out a low growl. "You're making a mistake, Pierce." "Maybe," Pierce replied, standing tall. "But it's the right mistake." In the days that followed, peace negotiations between Earth and the Arcanae began in earnest. Lyria and Captain Pierce sat across from each other at the table, representatives from both sides working together to draft terms that would ensure lasting peace between their species. It wasn't easy. There were still those on Earth who believed war was inevitable, and some within the Arcanae ranks who doubted humanity's intentions. But the foundation had been laid. With each meeting, each conversation, the possibility of a peaceful future grew stronger. Captain Pierce stood on the steps of the Federation Council building, watching as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to witness the signing of the peace accord. "You did it," Sarah said, standing beside him. "We did it," Pierce corrected, a faint smile on his face. Lyria approached, her sharp eyes filled with a quiet respect. "You kept your word, Captain." Pierce nodded. "So did you." As the peace accord was signed, the weight of what they had achieved settled over them. They had stopped a war before it could begin. They had forged an alliance that could change the course of the galaxy. For the first time in a long while, Pierce felt hope for the future.